The wind does not knock at the gate. It screams through the arrow slits, coils beneath the stone floors, and slips like ice along the back of your neck. You sleep with a woolen cloak pulled to your chin, not for warmth, but for hope. Hope that the rats will chew the grain, and not your toes. Hope that the cesspit doesn't flood again tonight. From outside, the castle looks eternal. Granite and glory, but you know the truth. Inside, it groans like a belly half-starved. It stinks of old meat, wet dogs and forgotten prayers. And as winter deepens and candles grow scarce, you ask yourself, what is a fortress really, if it cannot keep the cold out of your bones? If this story settles into your bones like a draught through cold stone, tell me, could you have endured a single winter behind these walls? Subscribe to journey deeper into the quiet agony of forgotten history. The fog clings low to the fields this morning, as if the earth itself is reluctant to rise. Beneath the weight of a leaden sky, your boots sink into the mud of the track, each step pulling like a tether to the village you've left behind. Behind you lies a crumbling cottage, your father's cough still echoing faintly in your ears. Ahead, the castle stands, not as a dream, but as a jagged silhouette, black stone against grey clouds, watching the valley like a beast carved from the bones of the earth. From below, it gleams with promise, but you will learn quickly that promise and prison often share the same silhouette. If this tale already weighs upon your shoulders like the cold mist in that valley, stay a while longer. Subscribe, or share your thoughts in the comments below, and tell me, could you have climbed that hill, knowing what waited at the top? You arrive in late autumn. The leaves on the birches along the road are the colour of old wounds, gold and crimson, fading toward rot. The trees thin, and the road steepens. The castle looms larger with every breath you take, until finally you stand before the gate, an iron moor set into a wall of damp stone, streaked with years of forgotten rain. A guard barely glances at you as he lifts the latch. No greetings, no warmth, just a nod toward the passage that swallows your figure whole. Inside, the light fades. Torches flicker from their iron hooks, casting long shadows down narrow corridors. The scent is the first thing that reaches you. Not just smoke, but damp straw, wet leather, old blood, and something fainter, the lingering sweetness of mold. The air itself seems ancient, as though it's been breathed 1,000 times before you. The steward meets you in a hall, so wide your footsteps vanish before they reach the far end. His robes are wool, patched and worn. His eyes look through you, already memorizing your name, not for friendship, but for records and rations. You are shown to the servants' quarters, a stone alcove tucked behind a staircase, where thin blankets hang like ghosts from low cots. The wind moans through the slitted windows, threading your hair, kissing the sweat on your neck. You drop your sack at the foot of your sleeping place. There is no bed, only flattened hay and a cracked wooden chest that may once have belonged to a soldier. The stones underfoot are slick with centuries of wear. Cold seeps up into your soles. You pull your cloak tighter, but the cold does not notice. It slips into you like a second soul. The others do not speak much. A girl with scarred hands tightens a rope around a bundle of firewood. A boy scrapes candle wax from a holder with the back of a knife, eyes blank. You nod at them, uncertain, but they do not return it. Here, faces are not for knowing, they are for surviving beside. Your first meal is bread, blackened at the edges, hollow at the centre, dry as crumbling stone. A bowl of broth follows, warm, barely salted, with something floating in it that might have once been a root. You chew it slowly, pretending it matters. The hall is grand but empty, its banners torn and faded, its rafters choked with the webs of industrious spiders. You notice a tapestry depicting a hunt, knights on horses, dogs chasing deer. But one of the hounds has been slashed by time, its face now a hole in the cloth. You wonder how long it has been since anyone laughed in this hall. That night, you lie on your pallet, listening. The castle speaks, though its language is strange. Wood creaks somewhere above. Water drips, slowly, near your ear. Far off, a door groans open and closed. Or perhaps it's the wind. The stone beneath your back is harder than memory, colder than regret. You tuck your hands beneath your arms to keep the feeling in your fingers. You think of your mother's hands, rough and warm, of your brother's laughter, of the orchard you once climbed in spring, before the blight came. That world is far behind you now. Down the hill, past the trees, across a dozen rivers of time. Here the only orchard is the stone tower rising above you. Its fruit is labor, and its leaves are flags that no longer fly. In the morning there is frost on the windows, though none dare call it beautiful. The steward wakes you with a shout, and already the day begins. Firewood to carry, boots to scrub, grain to haul, and no hour for your own breath. You pass a night in the corridor, chainmail humming like bees on his shoulders, and he does not look at you. His eyes are glassy, distant, as if he walks not through the castle, but through some memory he cannot leave. You learn quickly which doors you may open, and which ones are meant only for the nobility. You learn to speak softly, to tread even softer, to disappear into shadow, when silence is required, and silence is always required. The castle is not cruel in the way men are. It does not strike you, does not mock or belittle. Its cruelty is older, quieter. It comes in the endless grey of its corridors, in the wind that never tires, in the water that never warms. It is the silence of being forgotten by the world, even as you walk among others. You light your first candle that night, hands trembling from the cold. The flame flickers against the stone, and for a moment you imagine it dancing, not in joy, but in warning. It is a small light in a place that does not welcome light. You tuck it into a crevice in the wall, and watch until the wick curls in on itself like a dying leaf. Above you, in the Lord's chambers, there is laughter. Below, in the kitchens, a pot bubbles. But here, in your little corner between the stairs and the storeroom, there is only breath, yours, and the stone. It begins with your breath. You see it first thing in the morning, rising in small trembling clouds before your face, like prayers to a God who no longer listens. You sit up on the straw-stuffed cot, joints already stiff, hands tucked beneath your arms. The stone wall behind you sweats with moisture, weeping silently into the room. The blanket wrapped around you is too thin, the wool too old. It smells of old smoke, mildew and skin. Winter has not yet announced itself in snow or storm, but it is here nonetheless. It slips beneath doorways, rises from floor cracks, clings to the backs of your knees. It does not shout, it does not ask, it simply arrives and stays. You rise slowly, boots stiff with yesterday's frost. The fire in the great hall has long since gone out. No one dares waste wood on a servant's sleep. You walk through the corridor, torchlight dancing off the wet walls, illuminating little but the breath of those who walk beside you. No one speaks. They are saving their voices and their warmth. The castle was never built for comfort. It was built for siege, for war, for weathering famine and fire, and time itself. The walls are thick enough to shrug off arrows, but they trap the cold, like a jar traps air. Even the light seems to struggle here, filtered through arrow slits that offer no true view of the world outside. There is no sunrise, only a pale silver glow, seeping through stone like gilt. A woman older than Winters bends beside the hearth, coaxing fire from wet kindling. She coughs, a deep gravel-throated rattle that seems to shake her bones. You offer to help, and she gestures weakly to the logs stacked nearby. They're damp, greenwood, that never truly dries in a castle like this. Still, you do your best. Sparks fly like angry bees, but the flame refuses to live. The fire resists. The cold does not. In the Lord's chamber, they say, there is warmth, velvet-draped beds, fur-lined robes, braziers glowing with coal. But that warmth does not trickle down the spiral stairs. It does not grace the scullery, or the stables, or the stone passage where you scrub the chamber pots. The hierarchy of heat is as sharp as that of blood. A boy near your age, Rewin, he said once before forgetting your name, has found a place in the laundry. You see him scrubbing a blanket beneath a spout where icy water spills from the wall. His knuckles are raw, and his breath hiccups with every plunge. He looks at you with red-rimmed eyes and says nothing. No one does. Words burn energy, and energy is precious now. Your fingernails turn purple, your lips crack. When you smile, which you still try to do, some days, it hurts. At night, the frost creeps in as if it owns the place. You lay on your side, curled tight, cloaked in every scrap of cloth you own. And still, the cold finds the hollows, the dip at the base of your spine, the tips of your ears, your toes, which feel like someone else's now, distant and numb. There is no true sleep, only stretches of stillness. You dream not of warmth but of absence. Absence of pain, absence of cold, absence of needing to wake. Some nights you wake with your arms locked around yourself so tightly that your shoulders ache. You rock slightly, a movement learned from your mother, on nights when thunder made the roof seem fragile. She's far away now, maybe gone. You don't know. You can't write, and even if you could, there's no one to carry the letter through the frost-bitten woods. You are not the only one who suffers. You hear it in the coughs that echo through the halls. You see it in the way the younger servants walk, knees bent, arms stiff. You see it in the eyes of the knight whose armor glints by the fire, but whose fingers tremble when he removes his gauntlets. Even the animals retreat into themselves. The dogs, once lively near the stables, now curl beneath carts, noses buried in tails, whining softly. The horses breathe steam. A foal born too soon this winter shivers itself to death before the sun can rise. The fire in the kitchen burns the brightest. You linger there when you can, sweeping, stirring, scraping, anything to stay near the warmth. The cook tolerates your presence, says little, but hands you warm broth on the worst days. You take it with 2 hands, bowing your thanks. She watches you over her shoulder, saying nothing. Once you see her take a coal from the hearth and place it gently into a hollowed stone bowl, then carry it away like treasure. Later you find the bowl tucked under a cot in the far corner. She's trying to keep a child warm. It's not her child, but warmth makes family of strangers. On the coldest morning yet, ice blossoms along the inside of the glassless window in your alcove. It forms in delicate lace patterns, frozen flowers that no one can smell. You press your fingers to it and watch them burn from the inside. And still, you do not cry. There is no room for crying here. Only conserving, only enduring. The steward walks the halls with a blanket draped over one shoulder. He wears gloves indoors. A symbol, you think not of wealth, but of command. Others shiver while he is allowed to feel nothing. A girl, no more than 10, is caught napping near the coals, and is whipped for wasting wood. Her back bleeds silently. No one speaks in her defense. Later that night, she clutches your hand under the cot. You say nothing, just let her fingers knot around yours until morning. You begin to pray, though you don't remember the words, just the feeling of something above, watching, weighing. The chapel is always cold. The statues wear cloaks of frost. The candles there struggle as much as you do. You sit in the back row one evening, knees drawn to your chest, and wonder if even the saints feel this cold. Their hands are always carved from stone. Perhaps they do not feel at all. It's not death you fear. It's becoming like the stone, still, silent, cold, without memory. You learn to layer rags inside your boots. You learn to steal breath near the kitchen door. You learn that survival is not won all at once, but inch by inch, one toe that doesn't go numb, one breath that doesn't hurt, one coal you slip into your sleeve. Outside, winter gathers its strength. It hasn't begun in earnest yet, but inside, in your bones, it already has. The kitchen is the only place in the castle that breathes, not comfortably, not cleanly, but it breathes. Heat clings to the walls like a second skin, thick with the stink of grease and smoke. Soot swirls in the rafters, curling into the beams like dark ivy, and beneath it all, the sounds, bubbling broth, the hiss of spit-roasted meat, the low groan of cauldrons shifting as coals pop beneath them. This is where you find work, if it can be called that. You are not so much given tasks as absorbed into the motion, stirred in like a bitter root. The cook does not speak your name. She gestures, grunts, and occasionally mutters curses in a dialect older than the mortar between the stones. Her hands are square and scarred, her eyes dark and unreadable, like burnt oak. She watches you with the quiet certainty of someone who has seen many come and many go, and knows better than to grow fond of either. Your first duty is simple. Keep the fire alive, but even that is a trial. The logs are damp, the flues are choked with ash, and the wind outside snarls through the chimney like a beast denied entry. You blow, you coax, you sweat, and all the while, the air around you thickens. Smoke clings to your skin, coats your tongue, stings your eyes, until everything beyond the flame blurs. You learn quickly to work by feel. The stew pot is the center of the room, not because it is important, but because it is unceasing. A sour, greyish broth simmers day and night, added to endlessly, never emptied. You are given the task of skimming scum from its surface with a flat spoon made of bent tin. Sometimes you see meat, sometimes you see shapes you don't recognize. You learn not to ask. Once a hunk of fat floats to the top, tinged green with rot. The cook frowns at it, lifts it with tongs, and tosses it back in. Waste not. Even spoiled meat has something to give. You eat when you can, crusts of bread blackened at the edges, root vegetables boiled to exhaustion, meat that is stringy at best, gristled at worst. When you chew, it is not for pleasure, but for necessity. Your stomach becomes a cautious thing, grateful for warmth even if the taste rebels. The bread is hard, often hollow. Sometimes you find worms inside, tiny, white, still moving. You flick them away and eat around them. Everyone does. Hunger teaches a strange kind of silence. Rats live here too. You see them daily, their clever soot-dark bodies slipping between sacks, nibbling at the edges of flour bags, vanishing beneath the hearth. The cook curses them, throws knives that never land, but they always return. They are the true lords of this space. You begin to admire them, their fearlessness, their kennan, their ability to find food even where none should be. One evening, you hear a shriek. A scullery girl has found a rat in the grain bin, chewing on a severed finger. No one knows whose it was. No one asks. The steward inspects the bin, mutters something about waste, and orders the grain boiled and served anyway. Salt will kill what's left, he says. You keep your mouth shut. The cook doesn't smile. Not even once. But she feeds the youngest girl from her own bowl when she thinks no one is looking. She warms a cup of cider in her apron pocket for the boy with the shaking hands. And once, when your fingers go numb while stirring the stew, she wraps them in a cloth without a word, then goes back to gutting onions. You remember that. The kitchen becomes your world. Outside it, the castle blurs, long corridors of echoing stone, stairs that climb into shadow, rooms where candles tremble, as if afraid. But here, there is always movement, always steam and flame and the hiss of something cooking, even if the smell makes your stomach twist. A knight enters once, helmet under his arm, demanding meat. The cook eyes him, expression flat, then hands him a bone with more gristle than flesh. He curses, she says nothing. He throws the bone on the floor, she steps over it. Later, she gives that same bone to the dog that guards the pantry, a silent gift between survivors. You sleep better now. Not because you're warm, the kitchen is no less cold, but because exhaustion is its own kind of blanket. You collapse onto your cot at night, hands stained with ash and grease, clothes reeking of smoke. You dream of bread that doesn't crumble and stew that doesn't boil grey, but always you wake before the dream ends. One day, a girl no older than 12 slices her finger open on a rusted knife. Blood spills bright and fast across the chopping block. She stares at it, silent, until the cook grabs her wrist and binds it with a strip of cloth. She does not speak. She does not cry. Later you see her licking her wound, eyes wide, like she's tasting herself for the first time. You wonder what hunger does to a child, not once, but always. The stew boils, the fire stutters, you scrub pots until your fingernails split, and still, the hunger grows. Not just in your belly, but in your bones, a hollowness that eats memory, that steals dreams and replaces them with the ache of survival. But you live. You live by licking the ladle when no one watches. You live by pocketing the crust that falls from the Lord's tray. You live by breathing in the scent of onions and imagining a feast. You live because you must. And here that is enough. There is a kind of silence in this place that breathes, louder than any voice. Not the gentle hush of snowfall, nor the reverent quiet of prayer. No, the castle silence is different. Heavier. It clings to the walls like moss, and settles in the hollows of your bones like sleep you cannot shake. It is not peaceful. It is not kind. It is the silence of stone that has seen too much. You begin to notice it more now. In the way footsteps vanish the moment they are made, swallowed by corridors that seem to stretch longer the deeper you walk. In the way your own voice, when you try to speak, feels like an intruder. Even your breathing becomes careful, quieted, shaped by the rhythm of the place. The castle is old, older than your grandmother's stories, older than the crumbled village at its foot. It remembers things, you're sure of it. Not in words, but in the way doors sigh when they close, or how a draft curls like a whisper down the back of your neck. You don't speak of it, not aloud, not even to yourself. But it's there. You start hearing things at night. A knock that comes from behind a wall. A footstep that follows yours, but is never quite in time. A soft hum, tuneless, low, like someone remembering a song they once knew. The first time you rise from your straw mattress, heart thudding, you walk the corridor outside your sleeping alcove, torch in hand, shadows blooming like ink across the stones. There's nothing. The next night, it happens again. You begin to wonder if the stone itself is breathing. An older chambermaid, skin like parchment and eyes like ash, notices you one morning. She does not smile, but she watches you carefully and speaks without looking up from her work. They don't bother if you don't listen, she says. You don't ask who. You already know she's not talking about the nobles. You pass a narrow well near the servants' quarters, no more than a ring of rock, its rope long frayed, the bucket missing. It is sealed now, covered with planks, nailed crosswise. One of the boys tells you a girl vanished there, years ago. Slipped in during winter, or was pushed. No one knows. Some say you can still hear her, crying softly on moonless nights. You stop walking past it in the dark. There is a storeroom near the kitchens, always locked. One evening, it's left ajar. You peer inside, shelves of dried roots, cheese hardened to stone, bundles of herbs strung from beams. But deeper still, you catch the shape of something. A figure, a draped form. You blink, and it's gone. You close the door, you do not go back. One morning, the cook asks you to fetch water from the upper cistern. You climb the spiral stair, slow, tight, winding endlessly, like a snail shell. The air grows colder, you count the steps, you lose track. When you reach the top, you're dizzy. The corridor bends in ways that feel unnatural. You pass a door slightly ajar, and for a moment you see inside, a room with no windows where the air does not move. A knight's armor rests on a rack, polished but empty. Cobwebs shimmer like lace across the helm. There's a plate on the table, food still on it, untouched and rotted to black. You step back quickly, close the door, and descend faster than you climbed. You do not tell anyone. The castle speaks in the quiet, and slowly, it teaches you to listen. There is no such thing as solitude here. Only the illusion of it. Even when you are alone, you feel watched, not malevolently, just witnessed. The way a mountain watches or a tomb. You begin to feel like part of the stonework, like the walls are absorbing your shape, your steps, your breath. You worry that if you left now, the air would remember you anyway. Sometimes, the cold drafts don't feel cold, they feel like fingers. Sometimes, laughter echoes down from the Lord's hall, but no feast was held that night. You see a knight standing alone by the chapel window. His mail rusts at the edges. His eyes are hollow. You greet him quietly. He does not reply, just turns and walks, leaving no sound behind. Later you ask the steward who he is. No knight posted today, he mutters. Not since Sir Elric passed. You stop asking questions. Dreams change. Where once you dreamt of warm bread, of sunlit days and running streams, now your dreams are filled with corridors that twist like ropes, doors that open into blackness, staircases that lead nowhere. You wake sweating, heart pounding, but the air around you is frozen. You wonder how heat and fear can live together like that. The girl who sleeps nearest the kitchen begins to whisper at night, not to anyone, just into the air. She says names, old ones, strange ones. You write them in ash once, on the hearthstone. The cook sees them and scours them away with salt. The walls have ears, she says. You believe her. The silence changes you, makes you cautious, makes you listen harder. And in that stillness, you begin to notice things others don't. A crack in the wall that wasn't there last week. A shift in the light from the chapel window though the sun hasn't moved. A scent, sharp and sweet, that drifts from the upper corridor where no herbs are stored. You tell yourself it's nothing. But nothing has a weight too. You begin sleeping with your back to the wall. Sometimes you hum quietly, to fill the silence. Just enough to remind yourself you're real. Other times you don't. You let the quiet take you. And in those moments, the castle does not feel cruel, just ancient, tired, like a memory that cannot forget itself. On your way to the well one night, you see a small candle flicker behind a window in the highest tower. It's not a room anyone speaks of, not one used. The flame shivers, then goes out. You stare for a long time, and then you return to your cot and say nothing. The bucket sloshes in your grip, foul and warm. Not heavy from water, you haven't carried water in weeks, but from what the body leaves behind. Waste, bile, rot. The scent curls upward, unforgiving. It clings to your nostrils, crawls into the lining of your clothes, and nestles in your hair. You carry it anyway, because this is the work you were given, and in the castle, work is survival. You rise before the sun, before even the kitchen's first breath of fire. The corridor is still cloaked in shadow. The only light a faint shimmer through the arrow slits, pale and distant, like moonlight drowning in milk. The hallways are slick with night's condensation, cold stone, wet as grief. You begin in the servants' dormitories. Chamber pots line the floor, some half-covered, most not. The smell is alive, sharp and sour, and always worse after feast days. You lift each vessel carefully, the weight of each a guess, the contents sloshing thickly inside. You learn not to look. Looking makes it harder. Your hands are cracked. Not from frostbite, though the cold does its share, but from the coarse rope handles, from lifting wet ceramic again and again, the rim cutting into your fingers. Blisters bloom beneath your nails. One has turned purple. You don't remember when. You carry the pots up the winding stair, one by one. The steps are narrow, uneven, and slick with moss in places where the light never touches. A careless step, and you could slip. Many have. The steward muttered once about a boy who tumbled with his load, broke his back, and was buried with the waste still on him. You're not sure if the tale is true. It doesn't matter. You believe it anyway. The privies are set high into the walls, overhanging little chambers with holes carved into the floor, leading down into the open air. From above, you can hear the wind whistling through the chutes. Some days it howls like a voice, mournful and long. You kneel beside the openings, empty the buckets into them. The sound is always the same, a splash into cold, unseen darkness. Below, in the cesspit, the waste collects, a moat of human filth that never fully drains. You've smelled it from the outside. In summer, it rises like a living thing, swells with heat, buzzes with flies fat enough to drown in. In winter, it still steams, a warmth you pray never to need. Once, a rat scurries across your foot as you pour. It pauses, looks at you, eyes like tiny glass beads, intelligent and unafraid, then disappears into the chute. You marvel that even it has grown used to the stench. You envy its boldness. You return for the next pot, and the next, and the next. Sometimes the Lord's pots are heavier. You hate that you know this, that you can recognize a man by the weight of what he leaves behind. One noble's chamber stinks of wine and meat, another's faintly of cloves. A lady's pot has rose petals floating in it, perfumed but no less foul. You clean them all the same. There is no dignity here, only obedience. In the evenings your arms burn, your shoulders ache, as though nails have been driven into them. You rub them with tallow when you can find it, but it does little. The pain is deep, buried like roots. An old man named Edric once did this job. He walks with a stoop now, eyes downcast, mouth always twisted to one side. He points at your hands one day, smiles without mirth, and says, "The stink leaves the bucket quicker than it leaves the bones." He's not wrong. You begin to dream of emptying, not pots, but yourself, of casting away your exhaustion, your fear, your name, of letting the castle take it all. You wake from these dreams with your fingers clenched so tightly. Your nails leave crescent moons in your palms. The girl who sleeps beside the fire pit cries sometimes, softly, so as not to wake the others. You hear her anyway. She carries waste too, and her arms are not strong. Once, you help her lift a heavy pot. She looks at you as if you've handed her the sun. The steward does not approve. "Health makes weakness," he says, but his hands are clean and his boots polished. He walks upright while your spine bends more each day. You try not to mind. You try not to think. You try to focus on the rhythm. Lift, carry, pour, return. Lift, carry, pour, return. It becomes a kind of prayer, a chant that drowns out thought. Still, the castle whispers, One morning, you spill a pot. The contents slosh across the stone floor, running into the cracks, steaming in the chill air. You freeze, heart hammering. The cook sees. She says nothing, just hands you a rag. You scrub on your knees for an hour, the smell filling your nose, your throat, your skin. You do not cry, you've forgotten. Later in the kitchens, the old woman who tends the hearth slips you a slice of boiled turnip wrapped in cloth. No words, just the gift. You nod your thanks. She nods back. This is how affection lives here, in scraps and silences. By the third week, your back no longer straightens fully. You walk with a slight tilt, muscles tight as bowstrings. The cold doesn't help. Your joints swell. Your breath comes shorter. And still, you can, because someone must. And though the work is vile, it is work. It means you are still part of the castle, still needed, still alive. The scent reaches you long before the doors open. Meat rich and dripping, honey hot, thick and golden, cinnamon, wine, fat, smoke, and something rarer still, warmth. The corridor is thick with it, heavy as breath. You stand with the others just beyond the carved oak doors of the great hall, eyes fixed ahead, stomachs coiling inward like fists. The tray in your hands shakes ever so slightly, the brass chilled on your fingertips. Tonight, there is a feast. Not for you, not for the servants, or the cooks, or the ones who stoke the fires and scrape the pots. No, tonight is for the lords and ladies, the sons of knights, the whispering courtiers, the guests in embroidered gowns who glide rather than walk. You are here only to serve. The doors open. Heat bursts outward in a wave, brushing your cheeks, curling your hair with its damp richness. You step inside and blink. The hall is changed. Where days ago it stood bare and cold, tonight it glows. Hundreds of candles line the walls, flames dancing in iron sconces and silver candelabras. Tapestries once faded, now shimmer with reflected gold. The rushes on the floor have been changed, sweet-smelling and crisp beneath your boots. And the table groans beneath its burden. Roast boars with apples in their mouths, pigeons glazed in honey and mustard, wings crisped like bark, trays of sugared fruits, dates, nuts, cheeses the colour of sun and ash, loaves of bread, round, braided, golden. Nothing like the cracked stone crust you chew in the kitchen. Goblets of red wine glint like garnets in the flickering light. You move forward, balancing your tray of spiced meatballs and turnip mash. A man in green velvet barks for more wine. A woman swats your hip as you pass, mistaking you for someone else, or not caring who you are. You serve, you bow, you disappear. No one thanks you. You hover at the wall with the others, waiting, hands clasped, back straight. You are part of the scenery now, breathing furniture. You steal glances. A lord tears into a leg of goose with grease slicking his beard. A child, no older than 8, licks jam from his fingertips and lets half a tart fall to the floor. No one picks it up. Your stomach aches. Not hunger. It's past that now. It's emptiness, like something has been scooped out and filled with air. You imagine sinking your teeth into that fallen tart. The rasp of crust, the sweetness of berries. Your mouth waters. You bite your tongue. A minstrel begins to sing. His voice is sweet, high, and clear as frost. The lyrics are in a tongue you barely know about love, or war, or perhaps both. The nobles sway slightly, flushed with wine, laughter bubbling around the room like a spring in thaw. You see yourself reflected in the polished lid of a silver tray. Your face looks strange, pale, hollow-cheeked, a smudge of soot at your jaw. Your eyes, sunken but wide, shimmer with the candlelight. You look hungry, not for food, for something older, something deeper. At the end of the table, the lord and his new bride sit, shoulder to shoulder, adorned in brocade and gold. She barely touches her plate, fingers toy delicately with roasted almonds. He chews with slow confidence, his hand resting on the hilt of a dagger beside his trencher. They do not speak, they do not need to. Power hums between them like a distant storm. Someone snaps their fingers. You lurch forward, head bowed, hands ready. A cup is thrust at you, half filled with wine. You bow again, take it, refill it from the silver decanter. The wine smells heady, thick as blood. A droplet spills on your hand, crimson and warm. You lift your fingers to your lips. Just a taste. No one's. The boy from the lower storeroom is hunched in the corner, gnawing on a chicken bone tossed to the rushes. His eyes flick toward yours, wild and ashamed. You do not judge. You nod once. He nods back. Later, the fire roars higher. The wine flows deeper. Voices rise. A man pounds on the table, demanding a song he hasn't heard in years. A woman claps until her rings slip from her fingers. The minstrel plays faster now, sweat glinting at his brow. The feast grows louder, sloppier, and you stand still. Your legs ache. Your arms tremble from the weight of trays, flagons, platters, but you do not move. You are part of the wall. The fire, the furniture. Someone vomits in a corner. A servant is sent for a cloth. Another lady falls asleep with her cheek in her wine. The steward frowns, then smiles. All is as it should be. When the last dish is cleared, and the guests have staggered off to bed, you and the others remain. The kitchen is already roaring again. Fires fed to boil water for cleaning. You scrub goblets slick with grease, scrape hardened cheese from pewter, peel wax from the table's edge. Your feet throb, your belly growls. But still, you work. At the end of the night, you are handed a crust. Just one. Left over. Someone else's leavings. You eat it slowly, without shame. The taste is nothing, but it is warm. The air in the kitchen has changed. It is no longer the thick, greasy warmth of boiled roots and cracked bones. It is darker now, denser. Smoke no longer rises. It hangs, clings, crawls low like fog, coiling around ankles, swelling into lungs. You breathe it in with every step, every blink, every word. Winter has tightened its grip. The castle responds the only way it knows, by burning. Everything. Wood, hay, scraps of wool too coarse to mend, dung, when there is nothing else. Anything that might catch flame and promise a moment of heat. The fireplaces never stop, nor do the people who feed them. And yet, the cold still wins. You are sent from corridor to corridor, chamber to chamber, ferrying kindling, ashes, and fire-touched stones wrapped in rag. The hearths groan with effort. Their breath is black. Even the cook coughs now, and you've never heard her cough before. Not even when the onion smoke seared her eyes. Your own throat burns, not from illness, not yet, but from the constant swallowing of soot. The kind you cannot spit out. It stains your tongue. It lines your nostrils. When you blow your nose, the cloth comes back streaked in grey. You hide it. The steward won't care, but the cook might, and you need her good graces. You begin waking in the night with your chest tight, lungs full of dust you never saw. Your mouth is dry, lips cracked, no water. The jugs froze days ago. You suck on a sliver of snow and feel the cold drip down your throat like a blade. Children cough in the corners. One, a boy with a twitch in his left hand, hacks until his nose bleeds. Another wets herself in her sleep and cries, not from shame, but because the blanket is soaked and the chill will not forgive her. You help clean. You always help. The fires themselves have grown angry. They do not burn clean. They do not warm well. They spit, hiss, shriek when fed. One morning, a stone near the chimney cracks from the heat, splitting in two with a noise like thunder. Dust rains down into the stew. The cook swears. No one says a word. The chimney is too narrow for the smoke that needs to rise. So it does not rise. It curls back into the room, follows the beams, traces the ceiling like an inked curse. You see it, swirling. You feel it. It becomes part of the air. Even in the chapel, you feel it. The saints have gone black. Statues that once wore marble white now wear veils of ash. The Virgin's face is streaked with smoke. The crucifix is scorched near the base. The priest says nothing, just lights more candles. Perhaps he thinks the flame will burn the darkness away. It only adds to it. You sweep every morning, but the soot returns faster than your broom can chase it. It hides in corners, in the weave of blankets, in the folds of your sleeves. When you try to rub your eyes, it gets beneath your nails. One evening, you cry from the sting. The cook sees. She hands you a cloth soaked in milk. You press it to your eyelids and breathe. For the first time in days, you feel something cool. In the Lord's Hall, the fireplace is burned cleaner. Better wood, better stone, better care. The smoke still curls toward the ceiling, but it does not cling to the lungs. When you serve the meals there, your cough eases, your vision sharpens, your chest forgets its weight, but it is not your place to stay. You leave as soon as the goblets are cleared. Outside, the sky is slate-colored, thick with clouds that will not break. The snow falls sideways now, driven by wind. You collect bundles of straw from the barn, what's left of them, and carry them back inside. They smoke badly, but they smoke, and that here counts as warmth. The candlemaker's daughter has begun coughing too. Her voice, once rasped and whispered, is now hoarse to the edge of silence. She kneads the tallow with slow fingers, presses wicks between cracked thumbs. She lights a taper near the hearth and says, half to herself, they used to smell of beeswax. Now they smell of burnt fat and desperation. One of the cooks collapses. An old man with a bad leg and worse luck. He drops the ladle mid-stir and hits the floor like a felled tree. You help lift him. His breath is shallow, his face grey beneath the soot. No one says the word, but you hear it anyway, fever. They carry him to the draftiest part of the hall, a space reserved for those who might not return. You sneak bread to him. He doesn't eat. The windows sweat black now. You wipe one with your sleeve and leave a clean arc, clear as glass. Outside, a raven watches. Its eyes are bright. You wonder what it sees that you cannot. The castle groans at night. The beams creak. The fires hiss. You cough into your blanket, bite your fist, so you don't wake the girl beside you. She snores softly, her breath shallow but warm. You watch her sleep and think, she still has dreams. You envy that. The smoke deepens. It wraps the castle like a second skin. It lives in the bones of the place now, and in your. You wonder sometimes if the castle is trying to burn itself down, not with flame, but with forgetting. You see it first in the corridor, a smear of red half wiped across the flagstone floor. Fresh. Too fresh. The colour of raw meat and iron. It trails from the wall toward the stairwell and disappears into shadow. You stand above it for a moment, listening, but the castle offers no explanation, only silence. Blood is not rare here, not in truth. You've seen it on scraped knees, on butchers' aprons, on the hands of the cook after gutting birds. But this is different. This was not made for food. This blood is not part of a meal. It is not cleaned, not blessed. It is pain, lingering like a forgotten word. Later that day, you learn it belonged to a guard. Drunk, they say. Slipped on the stair while trying to sheath his sword. The blade sliced his arm, deep and ragged. He screamed, but only once. Then silence. You see him hours later, bandaged, pale, dazed. He doesn't speak, just rocks slightly where he sits as though trying to remember something that refuses to return. But the bleeding does not stop there. That week, a kitchen girl burns her hand on a spit rod, flesh bubbles before anyone notices. She bites down on a cloth to keep from crying. The smell lingers in your nose, charred skin and cooked fat too close to the scent of roast pork. 2 days later, a scullion boy crushes his thumb under a stone pot. The bone breaks with a noise like a snapped twig. He tries to hide it, fearing punishment, but the hand swells purple and green. He is sent to sleep in the stores, away from the rest, in case it festers, in case it spreads. Blood becomes a part of the castle's rhythm. You start to notice it in strange places. A red-brown stain on the edge of a banister, a blot on the floor near the chapel, dark specks beneath a stair where no one walks. And then there is the childbirth. A woman from the lower quarters, barely more than a girl, goes into labour just before dawn. Her moans echo up the walls like bird cries caught in stone. You are sent to fetch water, torn cloth, candles. You do not enter the chamber. Servants are not allowed. But you hear everything. The pain, the panic, the silence that follows. Only one cry is heard. Short, thin, then nothing. They carry her out, wrapped in a sheet. You glimpse a drop of blood trailing from the linen, still wet, before the wind dries it into rust. The midwife says nothing. Her hands are red to the wrists. She scrubs them raw in the snow outside, staring into the white as though trying to empty her own eyes. The chapel bell rings once that evening, A soft, low tone. Morning. You bow your head as you pass beneath the cross. But the crucified Christ does not look at you. His painted eyes are peeling. His mouth is cracked. In the following days, the bleeding seems to follow you. A knight returns from a hunt with a deep gash in his thigh. Boar tusks, they say. The wound festers. By morning, the leg smells sweet and sickly. They cauterize it with heated iron. His screams ripple through the halls like thunder beneath the skin. Another servant, Edric, the old man with the limp, slips on a patch of ice outside the smithy. His head strikes the wall. Blood spreads in a slow halo around his ear. He does not wait. You help carry him to the cold room. You begin to wonder, is the castle sick? The stones sweat. The floors weep. The very walls seem to pulse with memory. You hear it at night, not voices, but rhythms, like heartbeats, like breath, like something deeper. Once, you lift a tapestry to clean behind it, and find the outline of a handprint, faint, dried, long faded to brown. You trace it with your fingers, and they come away dusty, but something in your chest stirs. You do not tell the steward. There are rumors of a prisoner who once escaped and was flayed in the yard, of a girl who drowned herself in the basin behind the chapel, of a monk who starved in penance and was never buried, only sealed behind the wall. The castle remembers. The cook begins coughing blood into her apron. She wipes it quickly, hides the stain beneath another layer. Her hands don't shake, but her eyes linger longer on the fire, as if trying to memorize its shape. You do not ask how she's feeling. No one does. In the castle, illness is not treated. It is hidden. You start sleeping in your clothes, not from laziness, but fear. In case you wake in blood, in case someone else does. You tuck a clean cloth under your pillow, and whisper prayers you don't fully remember. One night, you see red footprints in the snow, bare feet, walking from the chapel to the outer yard. No one else sees them. Or if they do, they say nothing. By morning, the snow has fallen again, clean, white, as if the castle itself chose to forget. But you don't. You keep remembering. You walk the halls with your eyes down, but you see more than ever. The stains, the bruises, the half-hidden wounds, the broken, the bleeding. The castle does not kill, not quickly, not directly, but it watches, and it waits. And always, it remembers what it takes. Her hands are what you see first. Knotted, raw, cracked so deeply at the joints they bleed without complaint. She kneels by the well with her sleeves rolled past her elbows, arms red to the wrists, skin like bark soaked too long in ice. You stand there, holding a basket of soiled linens, watching her wring out a tunic stiff with old blood. She does not look up. Drop it there, she says, voice hoarse as ash. You do. She is not young, not old either. She is time-weathered, shaped by years, the way a stone is shaped by river water. Her back curves forward even when she stands. Her hair is streaked with grey, tied back with twine. She smells of lye, of damp wool, and of something else, something ancient and tired, like wood smoke left too long in the rafters. You don't know her name. No one uses it. They just call her the washerwoman. The laundry station is tucked into a cold, windowless chamber behind the inner well. The water runs through an underground pipe from the spring, outside. So cold, it numbs your fingers in seconds. The stone troughs are stained with years of soap and sweat. The rags used for scrubbing hang from hooks like strips of old flesh, stiff and curling at the edges. She does this work alone. You watch her slam a shirt against the stone again and again, the rhythm steady, unrelenting. Water splashes up the walls, darkening the lime wash to the colour of sorrow. Her breath clouds the air, slow and rhythmic, as if she's praying in some language only she remembers. "Did they tell you to help me?" she asks without turning. You hesitate. "No," you say. She stops, then nods once. "Good. Then you'll last longer." You begin coming more often. Not because you must, not exactly, but because something about her, the way she moves, the way she endures, feels like a kind of truth no one else in the castle will admit. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, her words land like pebbles in a well, small, but echoing deep. "Was a time," she says, "when they sang at the laundry fire, back when lords married maids, and winter was just a season, not a sentence." You're not sure if she's jesting. Her face doesn't change. The first time you try to wring out a woolen tunic, the cold steals the strength from your fingers. She watches silently as you struggle, then takes it from you. One twist, and water streams out, like grief from a wound. Use your whole arm, like breaking a neck, she said. You nod. You don't ask how she knows. She tells stories while she works. Never full tales. Fragments. Pieces. A woman who gave birth in the snow, then walked to the well before bleeding to death on the stones. A knight who hid his lover's letters in his boots, only for them to be burned when he died in battle. A boy who drowned in the basin out back. No names, only memories. Faint as breath, in winter. Sometimes she sings. Old tunes, half hummed, half whispered. Melodies that seem to tremble from the stone itself. You don't recognize the words. You don't need to. The sadness is clear in every note. She tells you once that the castle wasn't always so quiet. There were children once, she says. Laughing, running. One used to bring me flowers. Then came the winter when the snow didn't melt. After that, just silent. She doesn't cry when she says this. She just wrings out a cloth with hands red and split, and begins again. You help her fold the linens once they're dry, stiff from frost, yellowed from time. She arranges them neatly, precisely. Cleanliness is not for comfort, she tells you. It's for dignity. Even here, where there's so little of it left. Some days, she doesn't speak at all, just works, hums, breathes. You match her rhythm. You begin to feel a strange kind of peace there in the steam rising from the trough, in the scrape of wool across stone, in the way your fingers go numb and return, go numb again. The pain becomes part of the ritual, a proof of being alive. And in those quiet hours you see her clearly, not just her hands, but her strength. The way she carries the memory of the castle in her shoulders. The way she keeps its humanity alive, not through speech or warmth, but through the stubborn act of washing what others would throw away. One evening, as snow drifts through the crack in the high window, she begins to sing again, louder this time. Her voice is rough, but you close your eyes. The cold fades. The world shrinks to steam, and cloth, and melody. And for a moment, you are no longer in the castle. You are back beneath a sky that still holds stars, beside a stream, a mother's hand and yours. When you open your eyes, she is still there, still singing, still scrubbing. The washerwoman who doesn't need a name, because she is the memory of this place. And she remembers everything. It starts with a cough, not a loud one, not wet or deep or rattling, just a whisper of air through a dry throat. A servant girl in the corridor brushing dust from a windowsill, her breath catching once, then again. You barely notice, but the castle does. By nightfall, 3 others are coughing too. A kitchen boy, a night squire, one of the women who tends the lord's bed linens. Still, no one says it. Not yet. To speak of illness here is to invite its weight. To acknowledge pestilence is to become part of it. So the castle holds its breath, but the sickness does not. Within days, it spreads, unseen, unheard, until suddenly, it's everywhere. People move more slowly, eyes glisten strangely, skin goes pale beneath the soot and frost. The coughing deepens, then the fevers come. They begin quarantining chambers, not officially, no announcements, no orders, but through silence. A hallway is suddenly closed, a door nailed shut. You're told not to fetch water from a certain corridor, not to pass near the southern stair. You understand? One morning, you are sent to bring bread to the upper room near the tower, and you find it locked. From inside, you hear a low groan. Something thuds gently against the door, not a knock, but a weight, sliding downward. You leave the bread, you do not linger. The next day, the bread is untouched. The castle changes. The air thickens, not with smoke this time, but with something slower, heavier, dread. You feel it pressing down on your shoulders as you walk, as if the walls themselves are bracing for something they cannot fight. The washerwoman wraps her fingers tighter, scrubs the same shirt twice. The cook boils her ladle in water that hisses like warning. People begin to whisper, voices low, close to the mouth, like they're afraid the sickness can hear. You try to keep working, filling buckets, carrying firewood, scrubbing floors, but every task feels distant. You glance at others not with curiosity but calculation. Was that a flush in her cheeks? Did he stagger just now? The child with the weak lungs is the first to vanish. He's not sent home. No one is. He simply doesn't appear at morning roll. His cot remains, blanket folded, shoes still tucked neatly beneath. A servant clears his space that evening, face flat, hands gloved. The shoes are thrown into the fire. The chapel fills with candlelight, though no service is held. You sit in the farthest pew watching the wax melt. One drop falls every 3 seconds, steady as a heartbeat. The boy from the laundry collapses 2 days later. He had been coughing quietly, insisting it was nothing. Now he shivers on a pallet near the outer wall, lips pale, skin clammy. You sit with him, cloth on his forehead. He grips your hand suddenly, eyes wide, breath ragged. "Don't forget me," he whispers. You nod. But you don't speak. You know the castle won't remember. It will wipe him from its stones like steam from a mirror. He dies before morning. The steward says to burn the cloths. The body is taken by night. No bell rung. The priest mutters a blessing, quick and dry as a sigh. Then silence. More rooms are sealed. The laundry slows. The cook starts serving broth to servants without asking for chores in return. No one jokes. No one touches. Still, no one says plague. They say fever, chill, passing illness. But pestilence does not pass. It lingers. You dream of rooms filled with breathing, not people, just the act itself. Echoing, endless. You wake with a weight on your chest. You touch your own forehead, check your pulse. Still there, still yours. For now. And then, the boy. He appears at the base of the stair one evening. Skin flushed, hands trembling. He wears only one boot. He looks up at you, eyes wide and shining, and asks for water. You give it to him. Kneel beside him. Lift the cup gently to his mouth. His fingers close around yours. They are warm. Too warm. You hold that hand for too long, knowing what it might cost. But you cannot let go. Not yet. He says nothing more. By morning, his cot is empty. His boot remains half buried in the straw. You feel no fever. Not yet. But you know something is inside you now. Not sickness, perhaps, but sorrow. The days grow quieter. The castle breathes more slowly. Fewer footsteps in the hall. Fewer voices in the dark. One night, as you scrub the floor, you look up to see the candle flicker. Not from wind, but from breath. You are alone in the room, and still. You feel watched. The plague does not knock. It slips between stones. It nestles in warmth. It waits. He arrives just after sunrise, when the mist still clings to the battlements like sleep refusing to wake. No horn is sounded. No rider precedes him. Just a figure on foot, cloaked in wool darkened by mud, walking slowly through the castle gate with his head bowed and hands clasped at his chest. You watch him from the firewood pile, a bundle of sticks cradled in your arms, his robes are frayed at the hem, his feet bare, cracked, rimmed in frost. He does not speak as the guards approach. He only lowers his head further. They let him pass without a word. No one knows his name, or if they do not say. He walks straight to the chapel and kneels, not at the altar, not on the benches, but in the very centre of the floor, where the morning light pours in through the narrow window above. His breath fogs the air as he bows. Once, twice, then stillness. You pass him later that morning while hauling buckets. He's standing in the courtyard now, staring up at the sky with his hands held open like they're waiting for rain. It hasn't rained in days. By evening, he has become part of the rhythm. He eats little, a crust, a ladle of broth, sleeps in the corner of the chapel beneath a torn wool blanket. He tends the altar candles before dawn, sweeps the chapel steps, and washes his own cup with ash and snow. No one instructs him. No one questions. When he prays, it is in Latin, soft, rustling syllables that sound like pages turning in an empty room. You do not understand them, but they soothe something in you. Some of the servants mock him, behind cupped hands. Holy Ghost, they whisper. Saint of soot, but they keep their distance. There's something in his silence that unnerves even the boldest tongue. One night, you find him kneeling beside the kitchen door, hands pressed together, muttering blessings over a rat. The creature lies still, ribs heaving, eyes dull. He strokes its fur once, gently, and whispers something you cannot hear. Then he stands and walks away. The rat dies before morning. The cook watches all this and says nothing. She nods once, slowly, as if confirming a suspicion only she knows. You begin speaking to him in passing, simple words. A greeting, a question. He answers rarely, but when he does, his voice is quiet and broken, like wind through cracked shutters. "You carry much," he says to you once. You frown. "I'm not carrying anything." He only smiles, a sad tilt of the lips. "Not with your hands." He tells no stories of himself. But over time, the rumors build. Some say he was once a bishop's scribe cast out for heresy. Others say he buried his own child during the last plague. The steward believes he's mad. The priest in the chapel says he is holy. You're not sure he's either. He walks the castle's edges, the unseen places, the stair behind the apothecary, the frost-blackened corridor that leads to the old cistern. You find him sometimes staring at the wall, not blankly, but as if reading something hidden in the grain of the stone. He speaks to the fire, to the dead. Once, to a dying dog beneath the stables. You see him kneeling in the snow during a midnight frost, bare hands clasped, mouth moving. You watch from the shadows, the breath in your chest tight as twine. He doesn't tremble. He doesn't move. Just prays. And the snow falls around him, gentle as ash. The washerwoman says he's not here for penance. He's here to remember what we've forgotten, she tells you, or to remind us what we choose not to see. You carry those words for days. He finds you weeping once. Not loud, just shoulders shaking quietly in the cold behind the firewood stack. He kneels beside you without a word, takes your hand, and says only, "You are still here." No sermon, no scripture, just that. And somehow it is enough. Later you see him give the last of his bread to a starving boy. The boy doesn't thank him, just eat. He smiles anyway. The castle doesn't change. It still moans in the night, still weeps from the windows, still bleeds, slowly from the corners of every room. But with the monk here, something feels different. Not warmer, not kinder, just as if the castle has opened one eye and acknowledged the people in its belly. You begin to listen to the monk's prayers, not for meaning, you understand little, but for cadence, for the way they rise and fall, like waves against a shore. Even when the tide retreats, it always returns. He leaves one morning without a word. No farewell, no blessing, no tray, just a bowl, scrubbed clean, a folded blanket, and a single white pebble on the chapel floor. You carry it in your pocket for weeks, and sometimes, when the castle feels darkest, you press it to your palm, and remember, you are still here. You do not remember what made you climb. Perhaps it was the weight of too many silences, or the stale air in the corridor where the torches no longer burn. Or perhaps it was something simpler, the need to see a sky that hadn't been broken into slivers by narrow windows and arrow slits. Whatever it was, you wake before the bell and slip out while the others still lie tangled in their threadbare blankets. The air is bitter, and the wind at the stairs base greets you like an old enemy, sharp, cold, and without forgiveness. You pull your cloak tighter, tucking your fingers into your sleeves, and begin the climb. The tower spiral is steep and narrow, each step worn smooth by centuries of armored boots, bare feet, and the slow passage of time. The higher you go, the colder it gets. Stone walls sweat with frost. Your breath becomes mist. Your knees ache, but still you climb. You pass the arrow slits, thin gashes in the wall, and pause only once to peer through. The world is grey. The courtyard below looks smaller than you remembered. The stables, the woodpile, the chapel, all reduced to a child's toy box, jumbled and cold. You climb higher. The steps narrow, the ceiling stoops. Your hand finds the wall for balance, and the stone bites your skin. Your breath begins to come faster, but you do not stop, and then you reach it. A wooden door, crooked in its frame, swollen from centuries of weather. You push it gently. It groans like an old man rising, but it yields. The wind strikes your face like a slap, fierce and sudden. And then you are there, on the tower's edge, the highest point in the castle. The battlements stretch on either side, worn and jagged, patches of moss clutching the cracks. The flag is torn, its threads snapping in the gusts. But none of it matters, because the sky is open. For the first time in what feels like a year, you see it, wide, vast, endless. A cold blue canvas, brushed with slow-moving clouds. Pale light spills over the horizon, like milk across a slate table. You take a breath and feel it fill you, sharp and pure, the kind of breath that does not belong to kitchens or cellars or damp stone corridors. Below, the world stretches. The forest, bare and brown, the winding river, half frozen, snaking through fields you once walked as a child. The outline of the village, smoke drifting upward from the hearths. It looks distant, fragile, real. You sit. There is a small stone ledge, just wide enough. The cold seeps through your cloak, but you do not mind. Not now, not with the sky above, and the world below, and the wind threading through your hair like fingers of something long forgotten. Peace. That is what it is. A peace not born of comfort, but of contrast. Because up here, you remember the weight you've carried, the ash in your lungs, the blood on your apron, the child who coughed and never rose, the monk's prayers, the cook's silence. You remember the taste of stale bread and the bite of the wind, and the way the castle creaks in the dead of night. But none of it holds you now, because up here, you are not just the servant. You are not the rat chaser, the chamber pot hauler, the name forgotten on a steward's scroll. You are the only soul between earth and sky. The wind howls, louder. You let it. It roars past your ears like 1,000 voices crying and laughing and singing all at once. You laugh back, quietly. Not from joy, but from relief. Your eyes sting, but not from smoke, not this time. You think of the washerwoman singing softly as her hands bleed in the water. You think of the monk kneeling in the snow. You think of the boy who asked not to be forgotten. You will remember. You will remember. Because up here, you see that the castle, for all its stone and sorrow, is not the whole world. It is a hill, a fortress, a wound. But beyond it, the world is wide. Wait, you stay until your fingertips go numb. Then you stand. One last look, the sky beginning to pale with morning. The wind easing, the clouds stretching their arms. You descend slowly. Each step downward brings the weight back. The dark, the stone, the press of silence. But in your chest now lives a window to the sky, and no one can shut it. You find her where the tallow runs warm, deep in the belly of the castle, where even the frost dares not linger. A small room, low-ceilinged, lit not by windows or torches, but by flame. Hundreds of them, wicks flickering in rows like tiny sentinels, each standing in its cup of cooling wax. The air smells of burnt fat, old cloth, and something faintly sweet, perhaps lavender, or perhaps memory. She stands in the center of it all, a girl of no more than 15 winters. Her hands are coated in pale wax, fingers white and smooth, as though the cold has sculpted her from candlelight itself. Her lips are dry, her eyes are darker than soot. She says nothing when you enter, only glances up, then back to her work. You're not sure why you're there. Perhaps it was the flicker beneath the door that called you, or the silence of the hallway just outside, a silence that felt like breath being held. Or perhaps it was the scent, something softer than the castle usually offers, something that felt like refuge. You watch her dip a wick, then another, a smooth, practiced motion. Down, pause, up, twist. The wax clings, thickens, hardens. Again. Do you need something? She asks, voice barely above a whisper. You shake your head. Then sit, she says, nodding toward a stool. You do. The room is warm. Not like the kitchen's full of smoke and steam and noise, but warm like a hand pressed gently to your back. The kind of warmth that feels like it might ask your name. She works without speaking. You watch. There's a rhythm to it, a kind of quiet song made of repetition. The wax boiling gently in its pot, the tap of tin molds on the table, the creak of wood beneath her boots. Even the flame has a voice here, soft, steady, almost breathing. After a time, she says, I don't like the dark. You glance up. She's not looking at you. Just at the flame she's shaping, pouring the wax carefully around its small spine. It's not the cold that scares me, she continues. It's the nothing. The way it swallows things. You nod. You understand. She hands you a wick, gestures to the pot. You hesitate, then dip. It's heavier than you expect. The wax clings to your skin. Warm, not hot. Not yet. She smiles slightly. You'll get used to it. Over the next hour you help. Quietly, you dip and shape. She pours and trims. You do not speak much, but you do not need to. In the wax, you find peace. You learn that her father died 2 winters ago, that she makes every candle the castle uses, that she hasn't been outside the walls in over a year. You'd think light would matter more, she says once. But most rooms stay dark anyway. They save candles for prayer or punishment. You don't ask what she means, but the words stay with you. Before you leave, she gives you one, small, wrapped in a scrap of linen. It's for your corner, she says. The wind shouldn't take it. You take it, carefully, hold it in both hands like a gift too fragile to name. No one's given you anything in months. That night, after the bells, after the fires die down and the coughs echo in the dark, you light it. It burns clean, softly. The flame is steady. It dances only when you breathe too hard. You stare at it for hours. In that light, the stone looks less cruel. Your hands, less bruised. Your memories, less distant. You think of your mother's voice, of the orchard near your old home, of a sky filled with stars, of a time before cold was constant. You fall asleep with the flame still burning. In the morning, it is gone. Only a puddle of wax remains, hardened like frost. You pick it up, wrap it again, keep it in your pocket. You return to her that day. Say nothing. She nods, hands you another wick. The candlemaker's daughter does not heal the castle, but in her room, time breathes, and light remembers your name. They scurry in through the cracks. Clever, silent, sure-footed. You first see one beneath the pew, its eyes like twin black beads, its tail a thin thread of twitching mischief. It pauses, nose twitching toward the incense bowl, then vanishes behind the altar. You don't scream. No one does anymore. Rats are no longer surprise. They are simply part of the castle now, like cold, or hunger, or sorrow. But the chapel had always felt different, until now. They come in the night, mostly. Though sometimes you see them in broad daylight, bold, quiet, fearless. At first it's only 1 or 2. A scuffle behind the pulpit, a flash of fur darting across the stone floor. Then one evening you hear chewing, not outside, but beneath the tabernacle. The priest notices, but says nothing. You catch him once with his head in his hands, shoulders trembling, jaw tight, but he does not speak of it. He only lights another candle, and keeps the doors shut tighter than usual. The rats grow bolder. They gnaw through the base of the sacristy door. They leave droppings on the linen where the sacred bread is kept. They nest in the corners, where the statues of saints stare down with empty eyes and peeling paint. One morning, the crucifix lies askew. A rat must have climbed it. Or perhaps the wood simply gave way. No one fixes it. A boy swears he saw a rat on the altar itself, sitting, still, looking straight at him. He hasn't returned to chapel since. You try to pray anyway. You kneel near the back, where the light from the stained glass window still casts pale colours across the floor. Crimson, violet, gold. You bow your head, close your eyes, and then you hear it. The rust, soft, constant. A tail against stone. Tiny nails on old wood. You open your eyes. A rat watches you from beneath the bench in front, still, breathing, waiting. You don't move, neither does it. Something passes between you. Not understanding, not fear, recognition. The priest begins trapping them. Metal jaws baited with cheese, poisoned crumbs tucked into corners. But they are clever. They learn, they vanish, and return in greater numbers. One morning a trap is sprung, but the rat is gone, leaving only a scrap of fur and a bent spring. Another day, you find one drowned in the holy water basin. It floats silently, eyes open. You scoop it out with a ladle and bury it in the snow behind the chapel wall. That night, the priest burns the altar cloth, says it cannot be saved. No one argues. The candlemaker's daughter gives you a fresh taper to leave in the chapel. A little light helps, she says. You set it near the statue of the Virgin. You watch the flame flicker, reflected in her stone eyes. The rats stay away from the flame. For now, you begin to wonder. Are they drawn by hunger, or something deeper? Do they know something you don't? The priest starts wearing darker robes. Not black, but grey, like ash. He prays longer. Sometimes he forgets the words. One morning he stares at the crucifix for so long you think he's stopped breathing. And then, in a voice thin and cracking, he says, "Maybe they're just reminders." You don't ask of what. The washerwoman says the rats have always been in the chapel, just quieter before, better at hiding. The monk would have blessed them. You believe that. You think of him now. His hands, his silence, the way he whispered to dying things. You wonder if he knew this would happen. If he saw the faith cracking, not loudly, but like ice underfoot. One night, a rat runs across the open book on the lectern. The priest sees, doesn't flinch, doesn't shout. He closes the book. From that night on, there are no more sermons. Only silence, only candles, and the steady rustle of tiny bodies in the walls. You still kneel, still try to pray, but the rats are always listening. And now you wonder, who is holier? The man who forgets his words, or the creature who survives without them? You are sent to help dig. Not for burial. No one's died that you've been told. Not for a garden, for there is no earth soft enough to turn. But for space. The steward wants another cellar beneath the larder, a place to store barrels against the next freeze. You are told it will be quick, simple, a morning's work with pick and shovel. It is neither. The stones beneath the larder are old, older than the castle, some say, laid before the hall was built, before the chapel stood, before the banners ever hung. You and two others, a red-haired boy named Tillen and a man who has lost more teeth than he's kept, begin prying them up, one by one. The dirt beneath is dark and damp, soaked with time. At first, it's only soil, dense, cold, reluctant. You work in silence, your breath steaming, the dull scrape of iron against earth, the only sound. Then your shovel strikes something that is not stone. You pause. Tillen wipes his brow and kneels beside you. You both push the earth aside, bare hands digging through the mud, and then you see a curve of ivory. Smooth, hollow, human, a rib. You both sit back, wordless. The older man leans in, frowns, and mutters something under his breath. Not a curse, not quite a prayer. You dig again, slower now, and find more. A jawbone, teeth still set within it, a vertebra. A fragment of a skull, cracked, like an eggshell. Another rib. Then another. No clothing remains, no shroud, just bones. Bare and waiting. You look up. The ceiling of the larder is low. The candle sputters in its iron holder. The air has changed. Tillen backs away. The older man says nothing. Just returns to digging, slower now, eyes on the dirt. You try to tell the steward. He listens, then sighs. Old foundations, he says. Don't worry them. Just dig around. You return to the hole, your hands trembling. That night, you cannot sleep. You feel the dirt in your nails. The soft sound of bone striking stone echoes in your ears. The next morning, more bone, dozens. A hand, whole, curled like it once held something precious. A pelvis, delicate and narrow. The child, Tillen, won't come back. He says the place smells wrong. You don't blame him. The older man says nothing. He digs, sweats, wipes his brow, and you ask the cook if she's ever heard of a burial beneath the larder. She pauses, drying her hands. There are things in this place deeper than walls, she says. Some rooms were sealed for a reason. She says no more. You return alone that afternoon. You light 2 candles. You dig slowly, and you listen. The earth seems to breathe. The silence is heavier here, like a secret pressed beneath your ribs. You try to treat the bones with care. Stack them gently in the corner, away from the digging. You speak to them under your breath. Apologies, perhaps. Or just the only words you can offer. A name rises in your throat. You don't know who, but you whisper it anyway. The rats do not come here. Not in this room. Not near these bones. That night you dream of someone knocking from beneath the floor. Not to escape, just to be remembered. You wake with your hand curled into a fist, nails digging into your palm. You do not dig the next day. The steward doesn't ask why. The cellar is never finished. The stones are left half-turned. The earth is left disturbed. The bones remain, wrapped now in linen scraps, resting in a corner where the light doesn't reach. No one speaks of them again. But sometimes, as you pass the larder door, you feel something behind it. A breath, a thought, a silence so full it feels like a voice. The castle does not forget what lies beneath, And now, neither do you. It begins with the smell. Not smoke at first, but something sharper. Burning hay, oil, hair. You wake to it before the shout, before the bell, before the flames reach the upper walls. You rise from your cot, heart thudding. The others stir, coughing, squinting, moving toward the door like sleepwalkers. Then the noise breaks. Not thunder, not wind, but panic. Boots slamming against stone, screams. The unmistakable snap of fire meeting timber. The fire began near the stables. A lamp, they say, or perhaps a spark from a brazier, left too long. No one knows. No one ever does. But now the straw is ablaze, and the flames have found the dry beams above. You run toward the courtyard. The air hits you like a wall, thick, hot, blinding. Smoke bellows upward, churning black into the pale morning sky. Sparks leap like insects, hungry and fast. You see the cook dragging water buckets from the well, arms shaking. The steward is shouting orders you can't hear. A boy trips and drops his pail. A guard slaps him. There is no time for softness now. The fire climbs the stable walls, curls along the wood like fingers tearing at parchment. Horses scream, high, terrible, human-like. One tries to bolt, its rope taut, neck straining. Another kicks through a gate, hooves flailing. A man tries to stop it and is thrown to the ground, limp. You grab a bucket, fill it, run. You throw water where you can, where others point. But water feels useless. Drops against a flood. The flames leap from beam to beam, devouring without thought. A thatched roof caves inward, sending sparks into the hay cart beside it. The cart catches. The fire spreads again. You cough. Your lungs ache. The world narrows. Heat presses against your face, lashes your arms. Your fingers blister. You barely feel it. Beside the smithy, a girl screams, her dress alight at the hem. You throw your cloak around her, roll her in the mud. She sobs. Her legs are red, but she is alive. The chapel bells toll. Not for prayer, for alarm. The wind turns. The fire shifts. The wooden scaffolds against the east wall crack and tumble in a shower of flame. Ash rains like snow. You wipe your eyes and see the rat dog from the kitchens running. Fur smouldering, trailing smoke like a ghost. Then, the scream. Not human. A horse. A mare, trapped beneath the fallen beam. Leg crushed, eyes wild with terror. She tries to rise. Cannot. The fire creeps toward her belly. No one moves. The guard draws his blade and ends it. You turn away. By afternoon, it is over. The fire did not touch the stone. The walls remain. The castle still stands. But something is gone. The stables are black skeletons, steaming in the cold. The cart's ashes. The straw vapor. The horses that survived are few. Silent. The yard stinks of smoke, scorched wood, seared meat, and something else. Loss. You help dig a pit that evening, shallow and wide. You bury the mare first. Then the foal. Then the bodies of 2 boys. No one had realized were missing. There are no prayers, only dirt and silence. You wash your hands in snow. The water turns grey. It does not clean. The cook's hair is singed at the edges. She no longer scolds, only stirs and stares. The next morning, the castle smells different. Not of firewood or tallow, but of absence. The warmth that once clung to the courtyard, the sounds of hooves, the soft breathing of beasts, is gone. You light a candle for the girl with the burned legs. She cannot walk now. They've moved her to a storeroom near the chapel. You visit. She smiles, but only with her eyes. You speak little. What is there to say? The castle survived, but it has gone quiet again. Not the quiet of stone, the quiet of morning. That night, you dream of smoke, not choking, just drifting upward forever. It begins with a drip, not loud, not sudden, just a soft, steady pat, water meeting stone. You hear it in the corner of the corridor near the east wall, where ice once formed thick teeth along the edge of the window. Now one of those teeth is broken, melting. A trickle slithers down the stone like a line of tears. Spring, perhaps, has finally turned its eye toward the castle. You rise that morning to find the world softer. The air still bites, but without cruelty. The wind still whispers, but without warning. and the sky pale, thin, but no longer grey, peeks through the narrow windows like something remembered from childhood. You step outside into the courtyard, boots crunching on half-melted snow, the ground squelches, slush pools in the cracks of stone. And yet, you breathe deeply. For the first time in weeks, the breath doesn't sting. Steam rises from the dung heap near the stables. What's left of them? The fire scars remain, black and scorched, but now the ash blows gently in the wind like dust from an old book. A dog licks melted snow from a trough. Its ribs still show, but its tail twitches once, a sign of life. You find the washerwoman in the laundry room, sleeves rolled up, wringing linen beneath the trickle of the well pipe. Her hands still bleed at the knuckles, but her voice hums. Not a song, not quite, just a rhythm, like breath, like thought. The candlemaker's daughter opens her door and lets sunlight in. It falls across her table like a golden sheet. She runs her fingers through it, wax-stained and cracked, as if the light is something fragile she must memorize. The priest holds a service. Short, silent. He lights 3 candles, not one. No one speaks of the dead. No one needs to. But for the first time, the benches are full. Children play near the kitchen steps. Their games are quiet. Pebbles, sticks, tiny forts built from the detritus of a hard season. One girl laughs when her stone fort collapses. She does not cry. She builds it again. You clean the corridors, not because the steward asks, but because the dust no longer feels like defiance. It feels like shedding, like breath returned to a body long asleep. The rats are fewer now, still present, but quiet. Even they seem to sense the change. You open the shutters in the servant quarters. The light hurts at first. Your eyes, unused, but then it settles on your cot, your blanket, your hands. Everything looks the same, and everything is different. The girl with the burned legs sits propped against a pile of straw near the chapel. You bring her water. She touches your wrist and says, "The sky is blue today." You look. It is. The cook uses rosemary again, just a sprig. The smell dances through the hall like a ghost in a better dream. No one mentions it, but everyone tastes it. The snow shrinks from the courtyard. In patches, the stone is visible again, rough, cracked, familiar. You touch it with your bare palm. It is cold, but not cruel. That night, you sit beneath the narrow window in the stairwell. The stars peer through, faint pinpricks, like candles in a far-off world. You breathe. In, out, and for the first time since your arrival, you do not count the sounds of the castle in fear. You listen, and you do not brace. You listen and smile. Spring has not conquered winter, but it has whispered to it, and the frost has begun to loosen its grip. You fall asleep with your hands unclenched, and you dream of water running through trees. The castle smells of bread again, but not the hard, smoky kind that scrapes the roof of your mouth. Today, the air swells with sweetness, honey, almond, the perfume of roasted pears. It curls around the stones like music, and even the rats seem dazed by it. The Lord is to be wed. Word spreads like warm butter over crusts of silence. Nobles from neighbouring lands arrive in creaking carts and silk-strewn litters. Their banners flap in the spring breeze, stitched with beasts and gold-threaded crowns. Servants scurry to polish every scrap of metal, sweep every hall, hang faded tapestries with trembling hands. You are among them, rubbing candle wax into dull wood until it shines like fresh snow. They marry in the chapel. You are not invited, of course. But you stand at the back with the others, pressed shoulder to shoulder like cattle in a narrow field. You peer between cloaks, through candlelight, and you see her, the bride. She moves like glass, eyes pale, lips the colour of dried roses. Her dress spills behind her like a silver spill on frozen earth. The priest's voice rises, tired but sure. The vow is made. She does not smile. The bells ring out, bright, clear, unfamiliar. You almost flinch. It is the sound of celebration, but your bones do not recognize it. The feast follows. In the great hall, a table stretches wall to wall. Boar's head gleams beneath apples, roasted quail stuffed with herbs, trenchers of butter-soaked bread, spiced wine poured in goblets heavy with metal. Laughter breaks like glass, brittle and loud. You serve in silence. Plates too heavy, steps too fast, head always bowed. You carry a tray past a man with jeweled fingers. He does not look at you, only lifts a slice of meat, inspecting it like something found in the mud. A woman laughs behind her fan. You do not turn to see. The candlemaker's daughter is beside you, face flushed from the heat of the ovens. She breathes through her mouth and wipes her brow with her sleeve. You exchange no words, only glances. The kind that know. At the far end the bride and groom sit like statues. He drinks deeply. She eats little. The music plays, a harp, a flute, a boy's trembling voice. A song of summer, of gardens and vows. It does not suit the stone. You catch your reflection in a polished platter, gaunt, pale, eyes like bruises. You look older than your years. You look like the castle. A child laughs too loudly. The steward frowns. A plate clatters. No one moves. By candle's end, the hall is thick with heat and breath. Spilled wine pools beneath the rushes. A noble snores into his own sleeve. The laughter softens. The music fades. You steal a crust of bread before returning the tray. You chew slowly. It tastes of rosemary and yeast. You savor it longer than the feast lasted. Outside, the sky has turned a deep indigo. Stars blink through the dark like tiny, distant fires. You find the chapel empty. One candle still burns. You sit near it, not praying, just sitting, and the stone feels warm. Only barely, but enough. The wedding brought noise, light, riches, but the castle remains the same. The walls are still damp, the stairwells still cold. The echo of laughter fades quickly here. You rise, step back into the hallways you know, and though your hands ache and your back stiffens, you carry something with you. A quiet the Lord will never know. They tell you at dawn, a message, folded and soot-smeared, delivered by a man whose boots are cracked and whose breath smells of iron. The war to the east has ended. The lords make peace now. For now, and the roads, once thick with mud and blood, are passable again. The castle, heavy with its own silence, has no more use for you. You are free to go. The words land like water on ice. You nod, but it does not feel real. You have not thought of leaving. Not truly. You had perhaps forgotten that the outside remained. They give you no coin. Only your name back, as though that were enough to carry. You pack slowly. There is little to take. A worn shawl, a candle stub, a thin wooden spoon you carved one night while the wind howled and the others snored. You fold it all in the edge of your blanket. You leave behind the corner of straw where you slept. You do not look back at it. The castle is awake that morning, in the way it always is. Not bustling, but breathing. You pass the kitchen. The cook nods once, her eyes tired but soft. You pass the girl with the burned legs. She waves. You wave back. The chapel door is open. The priest inside, bent over a candle. You say nothing. He says nothing. Still, he touches his fingers to his forehead in farewell. Outside, the sky is wide and pale. The kind of morning that carries birdsong like a prayer. You step through the gate. It creaks. It always has. But now it sounds like something exhaling, letting go. You stand on the slope below the castle and feel the earth beneath you shift. Not physically, something inside. The road stretches downward, muddy, speckled with melting snow, dotted with hoofprints and old ash. But it is a road, a line that leads away. You walk. The grass, where it shows through the thaw, is greener than you remember. Not lush, but brave. Small blades rising from the soil, like hands reaching towards spring. Your boots squelch with every step. You do not mind. As you descend, you look back. The castle looms, vast, silent, proud. Its towers reach skyward, like frozen prayers. Its windows catch the morning light, like tired eyes. The banners are faded, the walls streaked with soot. One side still bears the scar of fire. It does not move, but you feel it watching. You wonder if it always watches not with malice, but memory. It held you for a year, in stone, in hunger, in breath, and silence, and dreams. You feel its weight behind your ribs, like something carved into your bones. You take another step. You pass the field where travellers once pitched tents. Only the stone rings remain, half swallowed by grass. You pass the frozen creek, its surface cracked and glistening. You kneel, touch the water. It is cold, but running. You had forgotten what moving water felt like. Birds flutter in the hedges. You hear a child's voice somewhere in the valley, distant, echoing, not yours. You reach the bottom of the hill, and you stop. You turn back, one last time. The castle still stands, a monument to winter, to survival, to what you endured. You touch the candle stub in your pocket. You turn away. The wind follows you, soft, not bitter. The sun warms your shoulder, and somewhere, deep inside, something begins to loosen. Not forgotten, but no longer clenched. You walk. Years pass. The world moves on. In inches, in floods. You live days that turn into seasons, and seasons that pass so quietly you forget how much time has slipped through your fingers. But somewhere beneath every ordinary moment, the castle waits. Not as a threat, not as a comfort, just there. A stone tucked into the marrow of your memory. One summer, when the heat cracks the soil and the birds nest in dry hedges, you return. The road is overgrown now. The old markers are gone, but your feet know the way. You crest the hill just past dusk, boots heavy with dust. And there it is. The castle still stands. Its shape is softened now. Less a fortress, more a ruin, worn by time. Ivy threads through the cracks in the wall. One tower leans slightly, like an old man listening. The gate hangs askew. The stone is darker than you remember, but it is still there. Children play near its base. They chase each other with sticks, laugh until they fall into grass. A dog dozes beneath the crumbled steps, tail twitching in sleep. Someone has hung a rope swing from the low branch of a tree near the outer wall, a tree that once barely grew in the shadow of the keep. You approach slowly, unsure what you came to find. The great doors are missing now. The archway yawns wide, gaping like an old wound. You step inside. The silence is immediate, familiar, but it no longer presses. It listens. You walk the halls. The servants' quarters are half collapsed. Straw still litters the floor, blackened with mould. You find the alcove where your cot once lay. The stone still bears the outline of your blanket. If you squint, or maybe that's just the dust playing tricks with light, the kitchen is open to the sky. Birds nest in the rafters where the smoke once choked. The hearth has crumbled, but the scent of ash remains. In the chapel, the roof has fallen in. Rain streaks the altar, but the candle holder remains, rusted, bent, and holding one half-burnt stub. You sit, not to pray, not to mourn, just to listen. The wind passes through the broken glass. A loose stone shifts underfoot, and, from deep within the walls, the old breath of the place stirs. You think of the candlemaker's daughter, of the cook, the girl with the burned legs, the monk, the rat, the snow. You think of the fire, the silence, the sound of your own heart beating in the dark. You remember. You rise and climb the stairwell, the one that used to creak near the top. It creaks still. You step into the old tower room. There is no roof, only stars. They look down like they did then, indifferent, eternal, kind. From here, you can see the valley. Huts have multiplied, fields stretch wider. The road curves like a soft ribbon through green. You are older now. Not broken, but shaped. You sit on the ledge, run your fingers over the stone. It is cold. It will always be cold. But it held you, and it remembers. You press your palm flat against the wall. The stone says nothing, but in its silence, you feel it speak. You survived. You stand, descend the stairs. Outside, the children have gone. The wind has quieted. You walk away from the castle a final time, not as one escaping, but as one who once belonged, and no longer needs to. The stones remember everything, but they only speak to those who once slept in their shadow. As the last embers of this tale fade into quiet, I hope a small warmth lingers in your heart. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to join us again through ruins, through memories, through the hush of forgotten time. Tell me what part of this journey haunted you, or healed you. Thank you for walking these frozen halls with me. If the silence of this castle stayed with you, stay a while longer, subscribe, and together we'll light candles in the quiet corners of history, where warmth was rare, but never forgotten. Could you have made it through a single winter behind these walls? What moment in this journey stayed with you the most? Have you ever felt cold that lived deeper than your skin, beneath comfort, beneath reason?